and welcome to Gerety Talks. Today we are having a special edition on advertising photography, and we have invited three talented experts to shine light on photography's evolving role in creativity and storytelling and its impact on the industry. We welcome today Karima Assad, award-winning visual artist, director, and photographer joining from Sydney. Patrice de Villiers, photographer, director, lover of food, music, images, and jury president for Photography D&AD 2024, joining from London. And Lisa Carleta, director, photographer, creative professor, NABA, joining from Belgium. Welcome and thank you all for joining us today. Let us start with some intros. Can you tell us a bit more about yourself and your actual work? Patrice, I think you can go ahead the first.
Yes, as I said, I've already done a dress rehearsal. Thank you so much, Lucia and Gerety, Lucia and Joe, for inviting us all to start with to take part in this discussion. I was also very delighted to be on one of the first Gerety juries, which so this is very personal and lovely to be here. So I shoot high-end advertising and editorial. That's what I've done over many career spanning many decades. I would like to think that my still life brings life to the inanimate objects that surround us through craft, creative thinking, and observation. And I've been very fortunate that I've had some wonderful commissions. There'll be many crossovers as we go through this discussion, I think, through advertising, advertorial, and editorial. I think that's something that will sort of unite us all. Continue hopefully to make beautiful, quiet yet dynamic images. I often get asked in interviews, what's the best picture that I've ever taken? And I always say the one that I haven't taken yet. So there you go.
That's such a great answer.
Karima, what about you?
My name's Karima. I'm a photographer director. I would say I'm probably an artist first, and I use I've been using photography for the last maybe two decades now to express myself and my art. I mainly work in advertising in Australia and the US at the moment. I like that question around what's the best photo I've ever taken. I think that's a great one. Do I think I have a great photo? Not yet. I think, yeah, I'm with you there. I feel it's the one that's yet to come for sure. Yeah.
Lisa, what about you?
So I'm Lisa. I'm a photographer and director. I'm based in Milan from Belgium. So I'm always like traveling to do my work. I guess as the other. So where I'm called, I'm going. So I work a lot in London, Paris, also. So I've been working mainly as a fashion photographer. I'm also obviously working in advertising and also as an artist. So for me, everything is a bit like my editorial work and my artwork are a bit linked. So I always have the same process of working. Obviously, when it's like an artwork, much more like research. It takes a bit like longer, but in a certain way, I'm always working like in a series, never like in one shot pictures. And I'm always trying when I do an image to be able to tell a story just with one image. So obviously I have a series, but like I think for me the hard things is like creating my mise en scène, because that's I think specialty is the mise en scène. So my work is really staged and also colorful, and I use all that things, so like props to create details and symbolism as well in my image.
And let's start with the beginning. How did you first got drawn to photography, and how do your early experiences continue to shape the way you see and tell the stories today?
Um, well, for me, I got drawn to photography because I can't draw. So, I take pictures to be able to express myself creatively. I do actually scamp out my ideas. I've got, so I can to a certain degree. But my early experiences were going to uni. I did film studies, English literature, and photography at university, and I just inhaled the university library. And in so doing, discovered so many incredible old masters, contemporaries, and I suppose that was sort of my inspiration. And as I said, it's like if I couldn't sort of make an impression on pen to paper, as it were, or whatever, paint to canvas, this was photography was my way of doing it, and it has allowed me that creative sort of freedom to within the bounds of its own medium, as it were. Although that's expanding, as we'll come on to later. So for me, that's it. And as I said, an ever expanding story.
Lovely. I feel, why did I start photography? I started off as like an avid traveler. I feel like I moved around a lot. I really enjoyed meeting new people, and I think it got to a point where like high was just not enough, and I needed something else to engage with people on. So I started taking photos of them. And so when I
Mm.
would travel, I'd take photos and I'd use it as a vehicle to connect with people and to be able to get more of an insight on who they were and what they did. And I'm it sounds a bit peculiar, but I can be a bit of a perv like that. Like I want to really get into the details of who somebody is. I find humans like immensely interesting, and photography was just this really kind of flattering, wonderful avenue in order to connect with people. And that led me to a career in photojournalism where where I could where I had a reason to want to connect with them, because you need a reason for everything. I don't know why. And then I ended up moving into advertising. And yeah, and then I've been using photography to create worlds within advertising, but really like it's all kind of come back to the same point, which is, documenting humans and their emotions and kind of everything weird and wonderful and all the elements in between.
Well, on my side, I've been like, I have the first contact with photography. I was at 13, I guess. I enrolled like in a photography class, and it was like love at first sight. Like when I um, learned how to develop like a film, for me was like magic, absolutely magic. And then even though I didn't study, because I decided to study advertising, so I was meant to be art director. And when I was doing my internship in advertising agency, I was seeing like an agent coming to present the portfolio of their photographer. And I was always like fascinated. So for me, it was clear that I had to switch. So I decided to try, even though I didn't study properly like photography. And I did like a photo competition, and I won the third place, and that's how I started like working. So first with magazine, so I started like doing a lot of editorial, and I was lucky because they let me do whatever I wanted to do. So I had like totally green light, and then advertising agency started contacting me because they were seeing my work in the magazine, and that's how I started also working in advertising, like in photo advertising.
And advertising photography today often sits between documentation and storytelling. When you're approaching a brief, how do you balance the narrative you want to convey with what the brand or client wants to communicate?
When I was looking at all the questions, this was actually one of the most difficult for me, maybe not for Lisa and Karima, because effectively, when I get an advertising brief, it's generally been through a million focus groups. It's kind of, I am executing it technically brilliantly, and that's what I'm asked to do. So I think that in my sort of sphere, in my role within the advertising genre, I have probably less freedom, which is why, as I was saying earlier, it's the greatest freedom I've ever had to is through sort of advertorial, when I've been commissioned by, let's say, brands like Selfridges, and I've literally been everything on the call sheet. So it's my concept through to my execution, through to any post that's required. So from my point of view, it is generally sort of much more that I am sort of I'm there to sort of shine the gorgeous light onto the creative team at the agency, and to make their and bring their ideas to flourish, and to for it all to look absolutely brilliant. So I may make craft decisions, which obviously help along the way, because I've got to do a treatment and I've got to actually give them my approaches. But in terms of moving the narrative along, within advertising, that's less of my sort of gig, and I get so much more freedom to do it, well, all the freedom to do that within advertorial and editorial.
So in terms of like the brand narrative and my own narrative, I find that I have I have quite a unique style to my photography, and it speaks to a unique audience, and it's very specific, it's very emotion led. It can be quite colorful, or I think mainly it's this like very intense emotion that you want to draw out. And with my career, I've been very lucky in the sense that if a brand is not a brand won't approach me unless they really want my style of work. Like they're really keen to collaborate. And if that's not the case, then the job doesn't necessarily come through, or the brand won't really come near me, because I can be a bit of a wild card in that respect. So you kind of really have to want what I'm offering. Otherwise, you're in for such a fun ride. And so I really live by the motto, rejection is protection in that respect. So, I want brands to do well, and I want agencies to do well within what their makeup. And I also want to live this very full and wonderful life. And so I find myself just doing the things that really that really make me happy. And people approach me when they want the same thing. And so I guess in saying that, we meet in that intersection of like this mutual idea and creativity and essence. And if the magic isn't there, then it doesn't really happen. So yeah.
I like this rejection is protection. That's smart.
Well, you just, you feel you live, I think, from a more full place, because we're all on the same page, and we all want the same thing, and we're all kind of going for the same team. So yeah, that's generally how I make that distinction, just by being like quite authentic in that reality.
I think I join absolutely what Karima just said. As I also have like a very specific style. I think when agency approach me, that's because they want that kind of photography. And so obviously the balance comes from dialogue with them, always trying obviously to keep the value of the brand at the center, but I always work with the same approach as when I work with my personal work and with my editorial. And so obviously I use my creativity to convey the storytelling. I worked with the creative team just to all go in the same way. And yeah, I think that's just try to keep the message of the client, what kind of message you want to communicate. But then I always work with the same process as for my editorial.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really important point, because I've always said that essentially, I mean, you take all of your integrity, professional integrity, and all of your soul, which is, I think, what we're mainly all about, you know? And I think one of the things is that to remain true to your soul and what you do, and that's what I'm getting from both of you guys, very much so, is so important. Is that, you know, you both have incredibly sort of definitive styles. Well, hopefully we all do. Well, we all do, and that is what, you know, draws people to actually commission us, to put that back into their and trust us with their brand, because I do think it is a kind of, it's a bit of a trust thing. So, and I think that that's probably a strand between the three of us, that we do have something sort of, you know, a creative expression that's very strong for all of us. And that, you know, it's like Pied Piper, and people will come to you, build it and they will come. So, you know, I totally sort of agree with what you've just said, Lisa. And that's, you know, I suppose the wonderful sort of thing that we can do, hopefully.
Yeah, I think you just, you know, when I'm listening to you, I think the thing that comes to my mind is like, you just really want to be met in your work. You know, and the other side also wants to be met. And in that mutual understanding, you create the best kind of work. I think when you start trying to be something that you're not, you really go on quite a tangent. And it just, I don't know, in my personal experience, it's just never really worked out. You know, I just like I can't be anything else than what I am, and I can't really offer you more than that or less than that, really. And yeah, when you find a vehicle to show that, and that comes out in your work, people are so drawn and so attracted to it. And it just becomes such a wonderful experience. Like, it's so much fun to move and create in that space.
You all have started mentioning something about your style, and you each have different styles in your work. So, how would you define it, and how do you see emotion and craft playing different roles in each of your practices?
Yeah, that's such a difficult question. I mean, for me, craft and emotion are absolutely inextricably linked. You know, I mean, that's what we do. As a slight left field, when I was looking through the questions again and again, one of the questions that's not asked, and I think it's quite interesting, but maybe not for now, is the definition of what is a photographer. Kind of where we're in the landscape that we're in now. I mean, for me, there are I put photographers in two camps. There are recorders and creators. I think probably 90% of people are recorders. I would like to think that I'm in the other 10%, and I prefer to create. I mean, I see still life as a blank canvas, and it's up to me to fill it and, you know, make it as interesting and joyous and engaging as possible. So yeah, I mean, that's what I would say. As I said in my introduction before we start recording, beautiful, quiet yet dynamic images, and bringing still life to life. Hopefully that's, you know, as I said, what you know has drawn my advertising clients to actually sort of come to me and say, can you make the inanimate animate? And I think from my early sort of food portraits with Sunday Times to the Inglorious Fruits and Vegetables, you know, I know that was definitely, when I do my presentation, I do a presentation, it goes from a career thing from those early portraits to Inglorious Fruit and Vegetables, because I was essentially, you know, sort of sought after to bring these wonderful little things, as I said, to life and give them character. and thus engage with people who are looking at the advertising.
What an epic title for a work. I think that's wonderful. That's it. Inglorious is a fabulous word. It's wonderful.
It certainly is.
Oh, I love that. I would say when I think about my style, I think, I think well, I don't think I aim to create these images that stop you cold. Like that's what I want. I want people to look at them and just, when you like see something and just like tilt your head to the side, like the world tilts just to one side because you're like, what is just going on there? And it's usually like those moments, like in between these moments. I spend so much time just staring at things and just figuring out like how I could just document whatever that is, that just like that interesting moment that that like making like the extraordinary quite, making the ordinary super extraordinary, like just in the most simplest smallest moments that just they're just fascinating. I love to document human beings and their emotions, and I would say that really is what drives the style. The aesthetic changes over time. Like my aesthetic has definitely changed. Like I really enjoy using like a wide variety of tools and and I go from anywhere from being like quite stylized to very raw. But I feel like the essence of it is that it's a it just makes you stop and just there's a reverence to it and you kind of just want to understand what was going on or like what happened before and what happened after and just really honing in on some emotion that needs to be captured and expressed and reacted to as well. Yeah. I feel like that's the best way to describe what I do.
Well, on my side, as Patrice said, is it's really quite. I find it quite hard to define how is my style, how is my work. Obviously, it's like the first thing we can see is like really colorful, um, really prepared, really staged, like really constructed. Obviously, the emotion for me is at the core of the work because I have to translate. I also colors are really helping me to do that kind of things, but I really have to translate the emotion because my often my character are really still, and so I use all the other things to bring the emotion in the image. Obviously, the story is like the easiest things for me to evoke the emotion. Then I noticed that some people were always asking me, but what's happening to that girl after that image? What's happening to her? And it was quite natural for me to pass to moving image because I really have like a full story that I divide in maybe 10 frame, like when I do an editorial, for instance. And so, yes, for me, it was I really love passing as well to moving image. It was really quite natural.
Yes, I mean, it's something that actually, not all photographers can do, and I've looked at your work and I can see that. Because, there is that wonderful narrative. But being able to actually translate that to moving image from still images, is difficult. It is definitely, it's another stop on that sort of craft journey. Yeah, I think you do it beautifully. It's sort of it's really sort of wonderful to watch. And I really like what you just said about what happens just before and what happens just afterwards. I've got a little piece I was going to say, later on. I mean, there's the wonderful sort of Cartier-Bresson thing, which is, capturing the moment. And in that wonderful moment, if it's sort of powerful enough, that will lead the viewer, on to thinking, oh my goodness, I'm really engaged with this. And I really want to know what has happened to this character, in this show or in this piece, what happens, as you say, before and after. And I think that's if you can do that, then hey, that's worked. Not my job is done, but sort of, yes, and it's your work is It's fantastic like that.
Yeah, I think we are creating moments. On my side, I'm creating the moment, and I think it's quite different, like from photography and moving image, because in photography you have to tell whole the story in one frame, so it's kind of like challenging as well. When you have the moving image, you have like a lot of frames to tell your story, so it's kind of more like it's totally different way of working. To tell a story in one frame is like really sometimes more challenging than doing like a moving image.
Oh yeah, we definitely got a harder gig.
Yeah.
Sorry, no doubt about that. But the joy of being able to expand, the story that you've already started to
Yeah.
tell,
Mm.
I think is a wonderful opportunity for more, sort of boundless creative expression.
And AI was mentioned as an area of interest when preparing these questions. I'm not really surprised by that, not just as a tool, but as a cultural shift. How are you incorporating or addressing AI in your workflow and thinking about its role in creative storytelling?
So, for me, it is about not using it for the sake of it. I mean, I'm really interested, as I say, I started this discussion saying I can't draw. So to be able to actually, pull on AI to, perhaps expand my vision, not being able to sort of do thousands and thousands of pounds worth of production on something, it is of interest to me. And as I say, I think we can choose to engage in it or not. There's a ton of Gerety did a talk on it recently, AI slop. I'd also say there's a ton of image slop as well.
Yeah, I like that. I how do I find AI? I love AI. I use it a lot in my practice recently. So I it helps me a lot organize my thoughts and set out my ideation process, which has been so wonderful, like being able to articulate my voice in a way that I really hadn't before, and then essentially create the wonderful things that I want to create. I think it's a great, I feel like in my own practice, I've used it to help guide my ideation process and help me flesh out my ideas, and that's been wonderful. But it hasn't really touched the um the actual shoot at all in a way. I find that when you're on set and you're taking an image, it's really just like it's like art comes, art isn't of you, it just comes through you, and I find it's an expression. Sometimes you create things and you don't even know why you're doing them, or you don't really understand the angle that you're taking, and you find the most beautiful things, and that's not really something that you can recreate. So I think when you're connected to your essence and you're connected to your work, and it is really and it comes from such an authentic place, like, these tools like photography, they can all help, but they can't necessarily take away the end product and the essence, which is really you're just a um a funnel form, I think. Especially in humanity, it's not like it's not really something that you can, yeah, it's a you can't really take no tool can recreate those things. Those things happen so naturally, and they're from another place, I think.
Well, when everything started with AI like a few years ago, I was very curious if I could use it, if I could create my style of photography with the AI. And so I jumped on it. I took an abonnement like to membership to Mid Journey, and I started like I don't know, like for a few weeks, and actually I did a whole project on climate change that I haven't shown yet. Actually, it's still on my at home, like sleeping. I quite managed to do it, like to recreate my style of photography. It was quite hard, but obviously, as we have a lot of photography, like a lot of our archive of our work, it's kind of easier because we can use it like to generate new images. But in my like in my work, I haven't really except that project that I developed just like to try something. I haven't really used it yet. Maybe in the future I could imagine like to integrate it, because I've seen beautiful projects where a part was shot like the model was shot, the background was created like in AI. So maybe it can be useful like to maybe to create like great set, uh, even though I'm always like keen like to create like for real, because for me it's what interests me, especially the set, like it's what I like to create the set and then to create that dream world. But I'm not closing the door. Who knows, like maybe I will integrate it later in my work. Who knows.
And let's go with the last question to wrap up. If you look 10 years ahead, what do you hope will have changed fundamentally about the role of photographers within advertising and storytelling? And what do you hope stays exactly the same?
So I think, AI, as we just talked about it, that is driving an awful lot at the moment. But, effectively, a lot of the, like Lisa said, it's that is just the tool, and I think it will come back to craft. Now, whether that's using AI and so on, we've yet to see. But I think that what I would like is that we get a bit of a bigger return to creative thinking, because for me personally, that's slightly what's been lacking in the advertising world. I think it goes to one of your other points, which was about content, which I just said, yes, you can't create great content, right? Massively. Next question. It was fairly dismissive. But it would be wonderful. I think, and the brands that will survive are the ones that really do invest in great stories. And will they still invest in great craft? As I said, the two are very much interlinked. As I said, we'll stay the same. And it is literally passion, energy, and putting our heart and soul into it.
I think mediocre photographers won't really have a place. And I think photographers that really work on their craft and their style and really have a point of view and a purpose will really start to shine. But I think that is really something that's going to be across the board in general, that you really will get pushed into a place where you can only kind of do what you love and what you're great at, because all the mediocre stuff is automated. So I feel like that's generally what I see happening. And I see it happening now. I feel at the moment I'm getting more briefs than ever, and that I get approached all the time for work. To the point that I tell people I get that luxury of being a little bit picky. And I think it's mainly based on the fact that, like, because I have such a strong point of view, and more people are just going to want to hone in and work with people that have a strong point of view. And that's yeah, that's how and I think it's just only going to get stronger.
That's interesting.
I think that I've seen like these last few years, like especially like in advertising, that they are asking, I don't know for you, for the other, for Patrice and Karima, but they've been asking more pictures, to shoot more in a day. So they want always more, and sometimes not to even use everything and I think it would be nice like to go back a bit and to go back to the essence, to shoot like what's essential, and maybe if we need just 5 images, just to focus on that 5 image and to create 5 beautiful images instead of maybe doing 10 in a day, which is quite a lot. And because we have we have to work like faster. So obviously on my side, I've always put the same preparation in my work. So I arrive on the set really prepared. So obviously the craft comes to the point that it's instinctive. So obviously I can work fast, but it's not the point. I think if we can really like focus on the essential things and just do what's important. So if you just need like 3, 5 images, just focus on that, not always think we can do more, just to do more. And maybe like in 10 years would be great also, like if we could be included earlier in the process, in the creation, like integrated in the conceptual development, maybe to help shape the narrative from the beginning.
Thank you so much, all of you. This was really interesting. I know nothing about photography, but I know a little bit more now that I've spoken with you. And I hope you have great pictures to be taken in the future, like Patricia said in the beginning. Thank you so much.
Not at all. Thank you, Lucia, for the opportunity, and fabulous to hear you guys, Lisa and Karima. It's been a joy and a pleasure.